Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome back to another professional match of StarCraft 2. Now what I got for you today is a top of the line match of Terran versus Zerg. This should be a really good one. Spawning here in the bottom left hand corner of 16-bit LE. And playing with the red Terran SCVs, we have a GSL code as Victor, easily one of the strongest Terran players on the planet. We have Gumiho. And his opponent spawning in the top right-hand corner of the map. This man right here ended up winning BlizzCon in 2017. He's the current world champion of StarCraft 2 with that, and of course that means we are currently looking in the main base of a Rogue. So this should be an epic one. I mean, both of these players are top of the line. So I'm curious to see what they've decided to bring here to 16-bit LE. Rogue going for that low ground expansion already. Obviously 16-bit LE does indeed feature an in-base expansion that Zerg could have taken instead of going for the low ground one. But obviously taking your first base on the low ground, while it is a little bit more risky, it will help out a lot with the mid game because your creep spread is going to be a lot further along the map if you decide to take your base over here. Just because the queens can start putting they can start putting creep tumors down on the low ground right from the very beginning of the game. Now, Terran versus Zerg, it oftentimes is very much so dominated by bio play. A lot of the top-of-the-line Terran players in particular, in the current meta of StarCraft 2, love playing that Marine, Medevac, Siege Tank, or sometimes Widow Mine-based playstyle, and then they transition towards Ghost and Liberators and whatnot much later on into the game. However, every once in a while, and this is kind of what made Gumiho famous, I guess, initially, they do go for mech as well. Gumiho was one of the players that really popularized mech. Basically, a lot of players were struggling with, for example, Mutalisk whenever they were playing mech, so whenever they were focusing on an army composition based around siege tanks and Thors and Hellions and Hellbats and all that. But Gumiho figured out, wait a second, even though medevacs don't necessarily make a ton of sense when you play that mechanical-based army, you can obviously still use it to boost your Thors towards, for example, your opponent's Swarm Host, or to, for example, the Mutalisk as well. And he was the one that really started chasing down a lot of those Zerg clumps that were very difficult to deal with if you were a mechanical-based Terran player. Now, lately though, Gumiho has been going for a lot of bio, but it is important that we keep an eye out on what kind of strategy he wants to play, because he's more than capable of playing both bio as well as mech. Third hatchery now though, being taken here for Rogue. Rogue, of course, just simply a really solid and straightforward macro Zerg. He doesn't really mess around. He's perfectly capable of cheesing, and he will do so, obviously, because you kind of need to if you want to win top-of-the-line tournaments. But he's very well known for displaying that super standard, macro-focused, swarmy kind of style. Usually, he will try and defend in the early game, and then eventually overwhelm his opponent with just simply tons and tons of units. Usually, if it's mech, he's favoring his style currently with Hydraling Bane. Or rather with bio, he will be favoring his style with Hydraling Bane, and against mech, he's been going for a bunch of Roach Ravager into Swarm Host and whatnot, so I'm curious to see what exactly he has in store for us today. Now, we do see that 1-1-1 style coming up right now for Gumiho, and he's actually following it up with a couple of Cyclones. So very interesting there. Rather than switching over to Tech Lab right now, I don't think he's going to do so just yet. He could do so, obviously, in just a little bit, but he did decide to drop 200 gas already to go for a bunch of these Cyclones. Now, this was just scouted, obviously, this setup, this 1-1-1. However, it's very uncommon for Terran players to follow it up with Cyclone play, so I'm curious to see how this is going to work out. Rogue, though, already feeling that he needs to go for that Roach Warren. Roach Warren, of course, very potent with the early game defense in particular, but later on, oftentimes you don't necessarily want to max out on Roaches. It's a very easy Zerg trap. I've fallen into it myself many times where you get stuck on this Roach Ravager-based composition, and it's really not that powerful. Now, here we go. Medevac was created as well, and that means that 2 Cyclones are already on their way to the other side of the map. And the thing about Cyclones, if you can get them like in that nice little choking point right there, obviously, Zerglings will have a really hard time dealing with it. Now, a couple of Roaches are coming up as well. Roaches are pretty decent, but they're still easily picked off by a small group of Cyclones. Well, here we go. Cyclones are boosting into the base already. We do now see that bio switch, by the way, coming up for our Terran player, so he's gonna try and switch into it a little while later, but look at that, right? Even though Rogue didn't know exactly what it is that he was going up against, he already had the units ready to defend against that. And that's usually how kind of the early game at this level goes. I mean, both players are forced to make a certain amount of units and they're both trying to deal a critical amount of damage, but they also respect each other enough to know fully well that it's likely not gonna happen. Now, once again, Hellions dropped off right there. Beautiful little elevator play actually there by Gumiho, using those Cyclones on the low ground and then obviously the Hellions and the, you know, the medevac on the high ground instead. Or yeah, the Hellions and the medevac on the high ground instead. But it's just a cute little play. Overall, I don't really expect Rogue to take any critical damage at all. So far, one worker was killed. And, well, once again, that was deflected with ease. Honestly, the thing is, these players make it look so easy, right? They make it look so very straightforward, but it's not that easy at all. It's very difficult to execute that kind of defense and offense as well. Because the thing is, obviously, Gumiho, did he lose anything? Nope. At this point in the game, he's lost nothing, whereas like the average Terran player probably would have lost at least these two Hellions, right? But likely some of these other units as well. It's very easy to mismicro your medevacs, for example, when there's already 5 queens out. Alrighty, so it does look like the early game is mostly over now. We're gonna immediately transition towards what we can consider the mid game. Double Evo Chamber now following this up as well. Now, I do want to point out, Gumiho's upgrades are already like, I would say, a third of the way done. That's massive, right? Gumiho is looking really solid here as far as the upgrade game goes, and right now we do see that Rogue is gonna commit to more and more roaches. Is he gonna go melee upgrades or missile? That's kind of the main question here. If he goes missile, it's a big indication that he wants to go ahead and continue playing this roach-based style. We do not see the Baneling Nest coming up as well. It was actually Dark who started playing for a little while. Yeah, so he is gonna go for the ranged upgrade. This is something that Dark was doing for a little while. Another Zerg player, also a very high level one. Dark basically was going Roach, Ravager, Ling, Bane against Terran players. So a mix of Roaches as well as Banelings. Not something that a lot of Terran players have as much experience dealing with. But I think, you know, at this level, I don't think it should really bother Gumiho all too much. But he is gonna have to figure this out. So 2 medevacs already have unloaded their units there at the watchtower. You can see that the creep spread is looking really solid already. These roaches, though, in a really, really nice position. A couple of Zerglings already dartling away there at the back of that 3rd base expansion. Nothing is really gonna catch this Zerg player off guard here. And while Terran is gonna continuously try and deal some damage, while some tumors were killed, right, immediately the queens are there to replenish them as well. So we do see now the transition towards a marine siege tank based army right now, which is very common in the mid game of TVT, or TVZ rather. I guess in TVT as well. 2-2 is already being researched here for Gumiho. He's gonna try and now transition towards a really strong, what I think is gonna be a mid-game push. Already though, I mean, with the creep spread this far out, right, it's gonna be so difficult to really deal any kind of damage whatsoever. The longer that this goes on, the further that creep will be pushed. Now, once again, 2 medevacs are going to show themselves. They're looking at whether or not the 5th base has been taken here for the Zerg. Doesn't look like that is going to be the case, but at the same time, a bunch of the Terran army here is moving across the map as well. So, medevacs are now unloading their marines inside of that main base of the Zerg player. These Banelings, though, will force the pickup once again. At the same time, 2 more groups of marines are standing here near the watchtower. They're going to be able to hold their ground for a little while longer. Hive, by the way, just about to finish up here for our Zerg player, so he could be looking into some Ultralisk or maybe Brute Lord here in just a little bit as well. But we are setting ourselves up for a really nice and steady macro game. Gumiho, though, he's gonna try and test the waters here for just a little while longer. Is he gonna expend off of this? Because I kind of feel like he needs to. He's finally grouping up all of his units. So rather than trying to put and split up his army for now, he's gonna try and group up all of his units. But the Banelings, though, trying to get that connection. Nice pickup there by Gumiho, trying to keep as much of this army alive as he can. But now with those siege tanks moving forward, right, Gumiho is gonna push and siege up on the creep. Well, here comes the swarm. The swarm just rolling forward straight away. A lot of siege tank as well as marines were picked off. And while Rogue didn't quite commit there to killing the entire army, he shoved that army backwards once again, right? And now he's making that transition. Ultralisk Cavern coming up, Adrenal Glands coming up, melee upgrades right now also switched into. So he's not gonna fall for that trap to stick to Roach Ravager for too long. Instead, he's already making that transition right now. And the thing is, obviously, at this point, there's no Liberators out. There's nothing to deal with Ultralisk switches at this point in the game. Still though, +2/+2 has just finished up here for our Terran player. +2 is very, very potent in this kind of scenario, but Gumiho is really just using this time now to go up towards that 4th command center as well. We've got a bit of a stare-off. Neither player really wants to commit. Obviously, Zerg doesn't want to leave the creep, and Gumiho doesn't want to enter the creep. Terran doesn't want to go on that creep at this point in the game. Does have a couple of scans available, I think, but even then, right, he's still just going to simply sit back and macro up to +3/+3. He must have realized that this Zerg player doesn't have a ton of upgrades, and actually a couple of medevacs moving across the map. They're gonna find another base that was just taken here by Rogue. Obviously, by sending these 2 medevacs away, right, that means that all of a sudden, this part of the map is very, very exposed. I wonder if Gumiho wants to commit to it. Both players, by the way, now maxed out. And there we go. He is gonna at the very least stim forward a small group of Marines to get rid of some of those tumors as well. Medevac still trying to just simply get a bit of an angle. Now, he knows very well that it's not going to happen. The defense has been really solid here so far. Few creep tumors were killed, but neither player really had an advantage right now. This is a sick game, actually. I mean, I don't think Gumiho really wants to push forward. It doesn't look like it. Not until +3/+3 is done at the very least. But neither does Rogue want to jump on this army, right? Instead, he's just simply trying to deal with all of these aggressive moves from Terran by just simply continuously expanding and building up his, I guess, establishment in this game. Once again, though, such a cute play there by Gumiho, right? Trying to back up into that siege tank fire. The creep spread, though, has been dealt with really nicely. Medevacs trying to unload some of their units once again. Both players microing and macroing their hearts out, trying to get that really big army out. But at this point, though, we do see Liberators being added on. We saw a couple on that production tab just a second ago. And now also a lot of Marauders being added on. So I think there might very well be an inkling that there might be some Ultra play here at work in just a little bit. There, by the way, are the Liberators. One of the Queens will find their grave over here. And all of a sudden, right, Gumiho is looking as if he's going to push forward. Still, the siege tank's not unsieging yet. Gumiho, rather than taking this as a greedy opportunity, is going to try and back once again. A beautiful target firing there on those Banelings. While a lot of the Terran army there ended up dying as well, a couple of siege tanks have creeped forward, and that means that Gumiho can now start dealing some damage over here. Still, a couple of Banelings are available. These Banelings need to be taken care of. Ultralisk now joining the fray as well, and that means that all of a sudden, right, the Zerg player is capable of overrunning a lot of this as well. Once again, these Ravagers getting so many corrosive biles on a lot of these very costly Terran units down, like, for example, those Liberators and then also those siege tanks. A lot of that bio army was cleaned up, but at the same time, a lot of the expensive Zerg units were also picked off. The thing is, though, I favor that engagement actually for our Zerg, because at some point as Zerg, you kind of want to trade efficiently with your Roach Ravager and replace them with Ultralisks, Corruptors, and Zerglings and whatnot. Roach Ravager is nice, but it's very supply heavy and you don't really want to have them for all too long. So you can see right now, on that production tab, Rogue is switching out of Roaches entirely and he's going to try and just simply get that dream army composition that he wants. Right now, going into +3/+2. Already 3-3 is finished, by the way, here for Gumiho. He's gonna have to switch into something else, though, and there we go. We actually just now saw the Ghost Academy finishing up, so I think that is gonna be the name of the game here for Terran. He knows now, obviously, that he needs to deal with a lot of Ultras. The thing is, a lot of Zerg players lately have been going from Ultras straight into Brute Lords as well, and it becomes this really difficult kind of game to play here. So immediately, 4 Ghosts are queued up. They're great at dealing with Ravens. They're great at dealing with Ultralisk as well as with Brute Lords. Modern Effect there will pay for this with its life. But at the very least, these Marines are getting, you know, a little bit of damage done. But the Queens eventually, though, will be able to shoot that army away. Those Spore Crawlers actually in really nice positions. Makes it super hard to really get any kind of value. Now, a couple of Ultras apparently on a field trip. Not entirely sure what they expect to achieve. I mean, that is a lot of bio just standing there. One of the Ghosts actually now showing itself as well. Well, apparently they're just simply going to launch straight towards the natural. Actually, they're getting still quite a bit of value here. But I don't think that's exactly what our Zerg player was looking for. I think he was hoping that maybe Terran was a little bit further out onto the map, because a 3 Ultralisk hit squad can actually still deal quite a bit of damage, but at this point, man, Gumiho's eco is booming, right? It will finally be confirmed now by Rogue as well, but this base is already up and running. It's got a planetary fortress there as well. Siege tanks, by the way, finally dealt with here, but Gumiho is replacing them with more Ghosts, more siege tanks, and then also more Liberators. No nukes available just yet, right? No nukes. I hope he's gonna switch into some nuke play as well. Nukes are absolutely phenomenal, but for Zerg right now, I would love to maybe see the addition of Infestors and maybe a couple of Vipers. This is extremely Baneling heavy. 65 Banelings. Oh my god. Is he just gonna go for it? Apparently that is the case. The Banelings are rolling forward. Siege tanks trying to desperately deal with that army to the best of their abilities, but the Zerg is just simply plowing through. Liberators in the air trying to deal with those Ultras as well, but they are just simply getting biled out of the sky. And with that, right, all of a sudden, Zerg made their way towards that newly acquired command center here as well. Planetary Fortress, though, is actually standing tall. The SCVs repairing so much of it, but the corrosive biles just barely are enough. And that base will go down. Gumiho's army supply just absolutely plummeted. Look at that, right? 130 supply to a near maxed out Zerg player. Zerg is gonna just simply get more and more Ultras, as well as 36 more of those Zerglings. A lot of the Banelings obviously did end up dying there, but Zerg's eco is still looking absolutely phenomenal. Beautiful play there by Rogue, really getting a lot of value. Now, there was another command center here in the bottom right-hand corner that was not quite spotted yet. No, Gumiho does still have that base over here, so that's really well done. He obviously still has a lot of command centers here in general too, so obviously he doesn't want to lose his workers necessarily, but he can go ahead and just transition out of this. Right now, we do by the way, see a nuke coming up. So that nuke can definitely be a game changer here in just a little bit, depending on where it's going to be going up, of course. Once again, there's a lot of scans available, and I think that Gumiho wants to try and see if he can maybe deal some damage here. Well, that's going to achieve absolutely nothing. I guess it got one queen, and most of that bio army once again managed to go back into the medevac. The thing is, though, we don't really see any anti-air right now for Zerg, right? The Ravagers are now gone. There's no Corruptors, there's no Great Aspire. Well, there is a Spire, I guess, but there's no Corruptors just yet. He needs something to deal with all of this force here eventually. I would love it if he actually decided to switch into some higher tier units, like for example, Ultra or Ultralisk Broodlord, I guess. One Liberator trying to move across the map, but there we go. The nuke was indeed deployed, and now with that ghost standing on this side, look at that. Beautifully done. That will force these drones out of there, but it's very hard to spot that little red dot. Well, there we go. The nuke does come down. At the same time, a big Marine Marauder ball is stimming forward. They're going to be able to pick up that base with ease. And once again, right, there's no anti-air available. While a lot of the bio there ends up dying, the medevacs are ready to pick up the majority of it. At the same time, we had one Liberator getting 8 kills on the other side of the map. That's 10 worker kills there, as well as a base for the Terran player in red. Nicely done. Second Spire now coming up. Apparently, +2 Flyer is already coming up here as well. And finally, we do now see that Corruptor switch. So, Rogue recognizing that he's going to have to deal with a lot of Liberators here if this continues onwards. This Terran army, though, he's slowly replacing a lot of those Marines and Marauders with Liberators and Ghost instead. It's pretty interesting, right? For a long time in StarCraft 1, we would see like a bio into mech playstyle in the Terran versus Zerg matchup in Brood War. It's kind of getting a little similar as well for StarCraft 2 right now. Well, that's a lot of Marauders that will probably have to run back towards the safety there of those siege tanks. Medevacs, though, are spotted pretty much everywhere. Another one of those, I think, Liberators there was spotted as well. With this many Spore Crawlers nearby, though, Rogue should have no problem at all holding off this aggression. But once again, right, Gumiho is just gonna stim forward these small clumps of units. He's been sitting on this side of the map for so long. Well, that's one Ultralisk, a goodbye. It got sniped with a couple of those bullets straight into the eye socket or something. I don't know how you can kill an Ultralisk with that much armor and that much plating, I guess, that easily. I can only imagine the eye is gonna be the vulnerable position. But regardless, it was sniped down, and that does mean that that base will indeed be going down as well. Well, at the same time, 2 medevacs were cleaned up there. Rogue trying his best to obviously stay in this game. So far, he's still definitely in a good spot, but I think I start favoring Gumiho right now. He's got a really solid economy. A lot of these bases are not spotted yet. Great positioning here on the army as well, right? Rather than just simply moving everything across, he's got small clumps of siege tanks and Liberators just waiting for these kind of run-bys, which is really important. It's very easy for a bunch of Zerglings to just simply overwhelm you. By the way, another nuke is now available as well. Greater Spire coming up, and at the same time, we also do see the Advanced Ballistics, which is the ranged upgrade. Big engagement right here on the right-hand side of the map. The siege tanks trying to deal whatever damage they can. Ghost now getting a bunch of snipes off once again. Banelings trying to connect with these Ghosts as well. They do have Cloak. I guess there's a single Overseer up in the air. I was gonna say, why are they not activating it? But there we go. Cloak does get activated. And one of those Ultras, oh my god, gets sniped in the ass. I mean, I don't know how it died there from getting one of those bullets from the back, but doesn't really matter. It's gone. Those Ultras are, like, they're dropping like flies. Look at the amount of resources lost here for Zerg. Really well done here by Gumiho. 384 Zerglings died. 184 Marines. Oh my god. Those Marines and Zerglings have families, dude. Why would you just... Anyway. Gumiho is just dropping mules everywhere, man. Look at the amount of resources that he still has. By the way, the creep spread is not looking as good anymore now for Zerg. He's decided to just simply give up this base and take the top left-hand corner a lot instead. There's now 11 Brood Lords. Okay, that's awesome. Right, the thing is, Ghosts are on paper good against Ravens, or well, good against Ravens as well, but they're good against Vipers, Ultras, as well as Brood Lords, on paper. The thing is, if there's a lot of Brood Lords out and a lot of Ultras, it's extremely difficult for them to get into a good position because they're probably gonna die before they get any damage done. The one thing, though, that this army of the Zerg does have is very little mobility. That means that this continued drop harass right of Gumiho on every side of the map is dealing so much damage. He's getting so much value once again off of this small army. And while this is going on, though, the march of the Brood Lords has begun. This is not confirmed as well by the Zerg player. At the same time, though, we do see that nuke going up into the air. The nuke is hitting straight into the main base. I guess that's mostly just to try and deny some of that production. Marines now unloading over here, but the Brood Lords have arrived. Thing is, they've got no escort whatsoever. Liberators are not supposed to be using their anti-air missile like that. They are not that great. They're not like Valkyries. They're not that strong when it comes to anti-air. But there's no denying, right, that there's no flying units here remaining or any Hydralisk for our Zerg player. And while Zerg is now pushing forward, he's trying to close out the game. I don't see it happening, right? All of the Broodlords just died. Those Liberators just dealt with pretty much all of those brutes, and obviously as soon as they are gone, that means that they can siege up and start dealing with all of those Ultras instead. That is 8 SCVs here in total. Gumiho did end up losing quite a significant chunk of his force there as well, but I don't know if that was a cost-efficient trade there for our Zerg player. Obviously, he threw away so many of those brutes, and at the same time now, right, the Liberators are getting, I guess, oh my god, they're getting replaced by a bunch of Vikings. Rogue recognizes the scenario that he's in, and he is the one who's forced to GG out. Phenomenal play there by Gumiho, really picking his opponent apart, right, over the course of like 20 different smaller actions. Trying to, you know, outplay the Zerg in mobility there. Even though it's usually Zerg who are the ones that are really mobile, in this game it was definitely Gumiho showing us that he's also capable of just simply being everywhere. Now, I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. A special shout out to all of the Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for making this channel possible. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I look forward to seeing you in the next one.